So this will be filmed.
Will you tell us about the whole Donald Trump thing that you said during the yeah, can you explain?
What are you talking about?
Like the impeachment?
No, I have to talk about tomorrow when I get to impeachment in the Constitution. Not a lot happened today.
Well, the football players are gonna be gone tomorrow.
Huh?
The football players are gonna be gone tomorrow. Are we gonna go over half?
Ask me again. Here we go. Oh, why did you skip? Come on, go. Now, I want it on record to say this is beyond the law. And we're filming this. Isn't that awesome? Here's the best part about this.
No,
On it says, and I swear to you this is true, not for children. I don't know, some student gave it to me. I can't remember where.
Where are you gonna put it?
Okay. Stay. All right. So take out the thing on the reading I gave you for HAPP. Take out your notes and take out the the fornication laws. The packet with the fornication laws. Oh, I see. Look really weird. Hey, what the heck? Is that hard?
Wait, what are we taking out?
LBJ for the USA. Everybody take out this, and also take out the fornication laws and your notes. You do have a reading assignment for Monday. 245 to 269. I just realized that is a terrible 2. 269. For Monday. It's my right arm. And it's in America, so it's chapter 6. So this was always the War of 1812, yeah. So the next test will be just chapter 6 is huge. So it's another one of those massive chapters. It goes through the Articles of Confederation all the way through the Federalist era, President Adams, and they pack a ton of stuff. Now remember, the book is a good supplement. It doesn't tell you all the details, but let's go ahead then and where are we finishing? We got Shays Rebellion. Did we talk about creditors and debtors? Oh, who wants inflation? Creditors or debtors? Did I give you the little table? Did I do that for you?
Yes.
So debtors want inflation, and why couldn't they control the money supply in the Articles of Confederation?
Because they had too many types of currency.
All this different types of currency, why couldn't they make just one type? Say it again? Yeah, they didn't have the power to tax, and therefore they didn't have the power to make a stable currency. And they should have just said only the US government can make currency. That actually will be in the Constitution. Only the United States government. Only. The United States government can print currency. That's not quite true. You ever look at a check? That's currency. Yes. So it's a little more complex than that. But also, what ordinance said no slave codes north of the Ohio River? Yeah, the Northwest. Which one said? What? I'm forgetting that. So what divide did it set up there basically? What name? What was this divide called? Somebody whisper. Yeah, that's sectional divide. And the trigger of civil war would be slavery where? Now, the South would be they wanted to protect it, but slavery where? Yeah.
in the territories where the U.S. government
Yeah.
doesn't control it.
That's a big thing. The U.S. government controls those territories, and that would be the fight over the federal law. Yeah, it'd be the southern states want to keep it, but they wanted more slave states. How many senators in each state have now? More slave states, more slaves, pro-slavery senators. That's why. And what would divide the country up, surveyed land between townships and sections? Of what? 1785, yes. And so we got to Shays Rebellion, we got to talk about that. So I didn't mention Massachusetts. But I did do the table.
Yeah, we just got them.
Oh, let me get this in right. We got Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a classic example of what happened. Their state government did everything they could to deflate the currency. Do you want to guess how they deflated the currency? They just didn't print it. They didn't print currency, there wasn't money in circulation. If there wasn't money in circulation, deflation. So they purposely created deflation. They purposely did. Deflate the currency. So what happened? More difficult for creditors to, or sorry, more difficult for debtors to pay back their loans, but also most people then were farmers. What happened to the price of the crops they're trying to sell if there's deflation? Dropped. How do you ever pay back your debt if not only do you have to pay back dollars of higher value, but your prices are dropping? How do you ever get out of the hole? By the way, you don't produce more, but everyone does. If you produce more and everyone else does, what happens to the price? It drops even more. It's a trap. And that gets us to one big thing. Farmers are always in debt. Did I mention this yesterday?
No.
I think in the other classes, yeah. Farmers are always in debt. Now, almost everybody's always in debt in some way. You know, most people don't have the money just to buy something. Big expenditures like, you know, a house or a car or pay for college or healthcare, that kind of thing. So, but farmers, because when do farmers get money? For the most part, how many times a year do they get money? Yeah, maybe twice, you know, but basically one time, right? So they've got to go the whole year on that one harvest. All it takes is one bad harvest, and what happens?
Not a year.
Say it again.
Not a year.
So you got to borrow, and then probably won't be enough to pay for 2 years, right? So you have to borrow more and borrow more, and the prices are dropping, and your currency is deflated more and more. It's a cycle of debt that's almost impossible to get out of. Farmers are really susceptible to those market forces and inflation and deflation. Really susceptible. That's why there's virtually no farmers in the United States today. Small farmers just don't have a chance. Less than 0.5% of the population of the United States makes their sole living off a farm. Montana, people think Montana's an agricultural state? No. Virtually nobody makes their sole living off of agriculture in the state of Montana. It's something like less than 3%. We're supposedly an agricultural state because of this. Farmers are always in debt. And I should add, it's happening to farmers right now, really badly. Because President Trump put tariffs on Chinese goods, so the Chinese retaliated by putting a tariff on goods from the United States, things like soybeans. Soybean farmers in, let's say, Iowa are just getting murdered because China's not buying them. So there's a surplus of soybeans in the United States. If there's a surplus of soybeans, what happens to prices of soybeans in the United States? They tumble, and now they can't pay back their debts. And it's right now. And so, once again, let me repeat, these things happen over and over and over again. We can see a relationship. So, back to this, farmers are in debt. Let's look at a neighboring state. I know you're thinking, what about Rhode Island? Rhode Island is inflating their currency, meaning they're printing money. So prices are going up. Now, it doesn't always work that easy, but in the short run, farmers are like, yes, my prices are going up, and it's easier to pay back my debts. But this is the key element, why we have to know these two things, and it is, does anybody know what suffrage means? At the turn of the last century, women who wanted equal rights were called suffragettes. Anybody know what suffrage means? It's a right. Well, people think it's a right. To do what? Suffrage is vote. Suffrage is to vote. What did you say?
I said suffrage.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I want that right. But suffrage, the vote. Who could vote in Massachusetts? What kind of people? What? Not just all male landowners. in Massachusetts had very limited suffrage. Only, for the most part, men with a lot of property. Meaning how many people could vote? Not very many. A few women could, if they were sole owners of property. It's really vague. If a woman got married, she became essentially a slave. Then, but women who, usually widows, they could vote. That right would be taken away over the next 40 years. I'll explain that down the road. But very few could vote. Who do you think had the suffrage in Rhode Island? Backtrack. This policy helps what type of people? Deflation helps who? Debtors or creditors?
Creditors.
Who does this help? Who could vote here? They had almost no property requirements in Rhode Island. So more people could vote in Rhode Island. And what did more people want? Debt relief. Does everyone got that? That is really important. You can always tell who runs the country or state, runs the government, by what they do with the currency. You can always tell. Here, you know exactly who runs Massachusetts. This is the creditors, and they are trying to rape the system for them. And in Massachusetts, this would blow up in Shays Rebellion. That's where the rebellion would be because of this. Shays' Rebellion. What happened was this. Farmers were not able to pay back their debt. Many of these farmers in Massachusetts were veterans. They fought in the Revolutionary War, got almost nothing except a little tiny piece of land way out in the wilds of western Massachusetts. Now, it has a black line implying there was a road. There's no road for most farmers. It's really hard to get their goods to market. And with a deflated currency, they can't, it's hard to sell it for a profit anyways. By the way, if it's really hard to ship goods to market, don't you want to find a way to make your product, what you're selling, let's say like corn, maize, to sell a lot of it takes a lot of room. Don't you want to find a way you can take that corn, which is like really bulky, and turn it into something smaller that you can transport easier? You know what they made out of it? Whiskey. They made whiskey out of it. Took a big bunch of corn and made whiskey. What do they do today? They make another toxic substance out of it today. Exactly. High fructose corn syrup, which is toxic. It's just piling in your liver. Yes?
So did Shays Rebellion only happen in Rhode Island?
No, that Massachusetts. I'm sorry. That happened in Massachusetts.
Oh.
What happened was, more people had the right to vote, so they didn't rebel. Here they rebelled. Western Massachusetts. And their soldiers who thought, I've been mistreated and slighted and lied to when I was a soldier, and now you still cheat us. And then, here's the amazing thing. What happened to people who went into debt and couldn't pay it back? Maybe, if they get out of there. The creditors in Massachusetts, every place else, they were, we'll call them the merchant class, but they might be storekeepers, shopkeepers, selling various products, merchants, selling seeds, selling animals. There are no banks in the United States yet. Banks will not come around for another about 5 years. Oh, I forgot a year. Shays' Rebellion, 1786 into 1787. I forgot to put the year. Or did I do it yesterday?
You didn't.
Oh, I did, okay. Merchants. So they're making a loan. Now, I have to be very clear. This is a transaction in a marketplace. This is pre-capitalism, but it's a market. People buying and selling goods. They were buying and selling debt. The merchants are loaning money. They're being creditors to debtors because they think what? They'll make money off the deal. They'll make money because there's deflation. Remember I showed you that yesterday? And here's another thing. They'll make money off of interest rates. It's a business decision. So when banks loan somebody money, or you go to a store and pay by an installment plan, whatever it might be, it's a business decision. You have two entities, in this case, the farmer and the merchant. It's in the marketplace. Sometimes people make good business decisions. Let's go this way. Sometimes bad business decisions. Did you catch that? This is actually really important. One thing I should add, why would a merchant loan money to a poor farmer who's barely making it and prices are dropping? They,
Get their
Right.
needs and so.
you're on the right track, but that might be coming down the road with something we call sharecroppers. But here's the big thing. If somebody's a risky debt loan, they can charge him more to borrow money. How do banks charge more?
Interest.
Higher interest rates. So people who are risky debtors, they charge more.
Why was it they still pay it back if they get their loan?
Well, we'll get to that. But even if they don't pay it all back, they get enough in the payments probably to make it up. And you'll find that out. Creditors will prey on people who don't have much. You people are desperate and have nothing. I mean, there's some payday lender sites or pawn shops. I mean, they charge 125% interest. You people go there and they're just desperate, and they know. Okay, these desperate people who do anything to need money today, and they just prey on people. Boy, it's hard to get out of that hole, isn't it? In fact, there's a term for it because organized crime does it. It's called loan sharks. They're the ones who break your kneecaps if you don't pay back. But they do it the legal way. They break their kneecaps by this. If the farmers, the debtors pay back their debt, they make money. They charge high interest and there's deflation. If they don't pay it back, here's the biggie. They don't have to do anything. The state will. Somebody who does not pay back their debt, they go to what's called debtors court. And if they can't pay it back then, they go to debtors prison. Who runs debtors court and debtors prison? The state. The state passed laws to make debtors go to prison and give up everything they have. You don't pay back your debt, they take your stuff. And you have to go to court. And the state will make it. Wow, who's that a good deal for? You know what we call that? A rigged system, isn't it? It's rigged. Let's go back. Isn't it rigged? Does everyone say it's rigged? I mean, wouldn't it be great if you made a business decision and you never lost? I make money if I make a good decision. I make a bad decision, well, the government comes in and gets my money. And I get rich. Wow! What a good deal, right? Who can vote in Massachusetts?
The creditors.
The very same people who benefit from this. They pass laws, to their point of view, seem perfectly logical because they help me. Not me in general, but me as I'm acting like the creditor. Once again, you know who's in charge. It's a big deal. By the way, debtors prison, that's the first one to Georgia. Those were debtors. They kicked them out and sent them to Georgia. Australia, debtors. People couldn't pay it back, they ship them off to Australia. People say, oh, there's a bunch of convicts. Virtually all of them were debtors. They lost everything they had, they shipped them to Australia. The British did. So, the system's rigged, and that's why the rebellion happened. That's what we have to get to. The rebellion happened because of this rigged system. So, if we have a rebellion, it is a class rebellion. These are poor farmers who rebel. It wasn't really a full rebellion like you think. It wasn't organized. Daniel Shays was furious that friends of his were going to debtors court, and what they did is they stormed the debtors court and demanded to close and free their friends. But they're also thinking, if it happens to them, it might happen to me. Next, the big thing about that is this rebellion, as all of these are, it was about power. Who has power? And in this system, the farmers had no power. They couldn't vote, and there was nothing they could do, to their point of view, except rebel. Or, I guess, run away. Where I think a lot of them went to join Daniel Boone in Kentucky. Get the heck out of here. This is terrible. Let's go here. In fact, that's a lot of the impetus to go west. But what happens when everything's filled up? Then, here's the thing, though. What's power? What's besides power in government?
Yes.
Maybe. That tends to be a lot. This is politics. That's politics. That's what politics is. Politics, or who has power. That's what politics is. Who has power? Politics. Who has the power to make the rules? To make the rules that favor what people? Because rules always will favor somebody. Always. Whoever has the power. And if you don't like politics, I sympathize, because that's partially done on purpose. People think of politics, don't they think of just like two candidates bickering with each other, and there's like a personality thing, you like that person, do you like this person? Becomes that, like a horse race. In fact, it disgusts me. I won't lie to you, it just drives me nuts. And especially with someone who follows it very closely like me, sometimes I wish I did. But that's what they talk about. But that's not what's important about politics. Voting is a job you have to do to pick a person that you think will use the power you put in their hands. It's not a personality conflict. I remember the election of 2000. Do you remember those heady days of 2000? Don't you remember those? George W. Bush against Al Gore, the Republican versus the Democrat. And the biggest issue was who was more personable. Who cares? In fact, they would say, who would you rather have a beer with? The idea being, who's a more regular guy. That was said all the time. Said Al Gore was kind of stiff, but George W. Bush seemed more personable. You know, Bush didn't win the popular vote, but won the election. What a terrible way to pick candidates, huh? Doesn't it seem like a popularity contest then? And if it's a popularity contest, what do a lot of people do? How's this going to affect me? Don't they? Half the population didn't vote in the last presidential election. Half of the voting age population. In the last congressional election, it was a record, and it was still less than 45%. It was a record high turnout. People just say, it doesn't affect me. Why? Because they don't really realize the power. Yeah.
When you say class rebellion, are you talking about Shays Rebellion?
But the whole essence was, they didn't have power. They didn't have political power. That's what everything comes down to. And so let's get back to this then. They send the militia. Because they always send the militia. Here comes the militia! Yay! What did the militia do? No. The militia. I know we always say, who makes up the militia? What kind of people? Most of the militiamen are what? The very same people who are going into debt. And the militia joined the rebellion. Uh-oh. Same thing would happen during the Great Year of Rebellions, 1877, which obviously we'll get to down the road. The state just went nuts. And this spread through the elite all the way through the colonies. We're gonna rebel and take everything we have. And so, what would happen was, it was put down because going into end of 1880 or 1786, winter came, some went back to harvest, the rebellion began to die down because it wasn't really organized. They were just going to march out Boston and demand political power. But, seeing their opportunity, Boston merchants, to kind of drive a wedge between that class of people, bought their own militia. They went to the urban poor, so the urban working class, and paid them off to put down the remnants of Shays Rebellion, dividing urban versus rural, which is pretty common. You see this time after time in history, using urban versus rural. When the United States government would try to stop strikes of workers trying to fight for wages and conditions, these are urban workers, and they use rural after 1877 National Guard. Right now it's happening in China. In Hong Kong, which is semi-autonomous, there's protests for rights. Some of you probably saw some of that. And it's still happening, even though it's calmed down a little bit. China's pulled back. But China has surrounded Hong Kong with tens of thousands of soldiers. And almost all these soldiers are soldiers that were recruited from rural areas in China, so they would not unify with the urban Hong Kong. And if they send them in, knowing the Chinese history, they'll kill thousands. I'm not kidding. They'll use that divide. So once again, this is not an unusual thing. The rebellion was put down, but the elite were terrified. And the elite looked at it as the people have too much power. And the cry of the elite was too much. Here's the big word. democracy.
Who's the elite?
The merchants, the plantation owners, the very same ones who basically led the revolution. And now they see their revolution and maybe their position in society falling apart. The people have too much power. Now, by no means were they creating a democracy, and the United States would never be a democracy. What we mean by democracy, more and more democracy means the people have more power. The people have more power. We are not a democracy today in the United States, but we have some democratic institutions, a few. And I'll talk about those when we get to the Constitution. So, they were already meeting to do something about it. And question number 13, who benefits, according to Zinn, to a strong central government? And the elite, those who are on top. Strong central government tends to keep the same people on top. Doesn't mean it has to be that way, but kind of historically. So how do you get rid of this? We need a strong central government. They've already talked about this. Elite have met 2 times before Shays Rebellion. At Mount Vernon. Who lives at Mount Vernon?
Washington.
George Washington. So they're trying to enlist George Washington's help. And also Annapolis, which is a town in Maryland. Now the Naval Academy is there. Basically, we got to do something about the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. But then Shays Rebellion happened. And when Shays Rebellion happened, Shays Rebellion, and get this down, directly led to the Constitutional Convention. 1787, the Constitutional Convention.
Wait, what's that word under Mount Vernon?
Annapolis. The Constitutional Convention. Convention. Ignore that. Ignore the squiggly line. Just ignore it. Act like you didn't see it. Nothing to see here. Move on. Which one?
Well, what is the word?
Annapolis is a town where there's another convention. It's a little town right here. That's a really pretty place. The Naval Academy.
Wait, what did they want George Washington to do?
They wanted him to lead an effort to get a stronger government. But then Shays Rebellion is like, oh, we got to do something. And so the Confederation Congress would vote. Oh, I almost forgot something. There's an internal insurrection within the United States with Shays Rebellion.
Internal what?
Insurrection, which is a rebellion. There's a rebellion against the government. What could the is there one you don't know?
Convention.
Yeah, that's supposed to be convention. I just accidentally put a T there.
What they do?
Let's start over. Convention. So, what could the Confederation government do about the rebellion?
What could you do about it?
What could they do about Shays Rebellion? There's a rebellion within the United States. The government is about ready to topple. What could the Confederation government do? What's that? Can they enact a martial law? They don't have a what? Say it again. Now they did not have an executive. What else don't they have? They have no troops. They have no army. They can't do anything. The Confederation Congress could not do anything to stop Shays' rebellion. They could do nothing. And the thought was, if this happens again, the whole thing might topple. And so that is why they met at the Constitutional Convention. And originally, it was going to be to change the articles, to strengthen it. But it turned into, they decided to write a new constitution. Once they did that, about half of the people left. About half of the people left once they decided to write a new constitution. Only 55 people remained. And they would meet in secret for one very important reason. What do you call it when 2 or more people meet to commit a crime? They thought they might be accused of committing conspiracy to commit a crime. And what's the crime? Exactly. Does everyone have that? They thought at the Constitutional Convention they will be accused of being, that's supposed to be an error. Error. Traitors. If 55 people meet and their mandated, legally mandated job is to strengthen the articles. And they decide to throw that out and on their own write a brand new government, create a brand new government that might benefit those 55 people. That is treason. So they met in secret, but the plan is, then we'll throw it at everybody at once. So tomorrow we'll do the Constitution. Let me look at this happening real fast. So at the bottom of that, I'm gonna steal yours real quick. The bottom of the fornication laws. I do want you to look at the draft of the Declaration of Independence. And the reason I'm doing this now, you now know about the Declaration of Independence. You know what happened, or you know about the issues of the war. So you're gonna have to read this tonight. It's just really short. But I want you to do this. On the bottom, there's a little bit of a margin right there. I want you to jot down a few things. Look at that list I gave you of historical. It says HAPP. Who has on top it says historical audience? I accidentally put audience. And so did I tell you to put down context?
Yes.
Does everyone have context now? Good. So when you read this, go through, in fact, let me backtrack. Every time you read the document, any document, what's the first thing you should do? Read the title. Read who wrote it. Don't just start reading the document. And by the way, I guarantee all of us have done that. Right? After reading, just start reading. All of us have done that, right? Right, we all have. And if you don't know the context of what's going on, what does it become? Just a word salad, doesn't it? Just words. Think about what's going on. We know the Declaration of Independence. The draft of the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson wrote it. The squirrel just jumped out the window. And what was going on? That's not a squirrel. That's a crow the size of a small child. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. Jot down on the bottom, give me 3 historical events that were going on at the same time. Try to write down who Jefferson was writing to. So you're doing these 4, just jot down on the bottom. His point of view, why he felt the way he did, and then read the document and just jot down what he was, what his purpose was, why he did it. If you can do these 4 things, especially historical context, will make the document so much easier. Sorry, I ran out of time. I blame society and that damn squirrel.
What were
And just jot down just a few words. We'll talk about real quick at the beginning of the class. And the thing about it is, if you know a little bit of the context, it makes the document so much easier to read. The Declaration of Independence is really cool. The Constitution is long. Except for the preamble. The preamble is cool. The what? To read it after the actual document?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
It's still going.
I don't know. I didn't even see it until the paper was really cool.
yeah, you don't have time. I'm gonna hit him in the head.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at the back of that, I have to read it. And in the back of that, the fornication laws are, there's a document called Federal Assembly Plan. And it's, you have to read that. And there are a couple questions. That's that on the separate sheet. I might give one more day, but my plan is to. A lot of it depends. I'm doing the conversation. I'll see how long it is. All right. Thank you.
I agree with this cat. It speaks.